This is News 25 with Deanna O'Donnell and Missy Kohler. News 25, local news you can count on. News is brought to you by Bees Embroidery and Garment Printing, specializing in custom and personalized decoration of gifts, garments, and more. Call 775-727-9444. News is also brought to you by J.K. Nelson Law. Call 727-9900 today for your free consultation. If you need a lawyer, you need Nelson.
Welcome. We hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. I'm Deanna O'Donnell.
And I'm Missy Kohler, and today is September 9th. Thank you for joining us.
Well, 19-year-old Michael Wilson was sentenced in Pahrump District Court today in the case of the state versus Michael Wilson, also his brother, Dakota Saldivar. Both men were being sentenced after pleading guilty for the murder of their mother, Dawn Liebig, in 2018.
Liebig, who was 46 at the time of her death, was reportedly stabbed 46 times and received 16 fractures in her skull by a hammer. At the time of the murder, both Wilson and Saldivar were 17 years old. They said that they were tired of their mother's complaints of being sick from cancer and asking them to help around the house. Liebig was asleep on the sofa when the attack occurred, and she called for help from her children because she believed she was being attacked by an intruder. Her last words, according to police, were, "Is this really happening?" Wilson had been living at the Liebig home for a number of years. He was considered an adopted son. Saldivar is Liebig's biological son. In court, witnesses testified that Wilson had a very difficult childhood filled with both physical and sexual abuse from his father and others.
Throughout his life, he has been dealt in absolutely terrible hands, starting with his father. At the age of 3 or 4, Mr. Wilson began being physically abused by his father. And by the age of 5, that physical abuse turned into sexual abuse. From the ages of 5 to 7, Mr. Wilson was sexually abused by his father.
He had been described as suicidal at one time. Wilson went from house to house after the death of his mother and grandmother when he was 10 years old and lived alone for 2 months at age 11 when his grandfather kicked him out of the house. In court today, Wilson cried when they spoke of the death of his mother and grandmother, the only 2 nurturing figures in his life. The court commented that he exhibited remorse and understands what he did was wrong. He had led police to where they buried Liebig and where the murder weapons were located. It was Saldivar who reportedly came up with the plan to kill their mother, and Wilson reluctantly followed but led the attack. A letter written by family friend Richard and Stormy Ingersoll said that Wilson craved acceptance and was a follower. His attorney, Ronnie Boscovich, said Wilson is currently in therapy. Kirk Vitto, Chief Deputy District Attorney for Nye County, said the crime was premeditated and asked for the maximum sentence for use of a deadly weapon with enhancements and for the charge of second-degree murder.
This was clearly a premeditated first-degree murder charge, potentially facing life in prison without the possibility of parole. Our negotiation and actions by the legislature, as well as court cases that I know this court is very familiar with, have intervened to address situations when a young man such as Mr. Wilson is involved with a case like this. Having said that, it's the position of the prosecution that the defendant has gotten the only break he should ever get. The United States Supreme Court, the Nevada Supreme Court, the Nevada legislature changed the law in his favor, making it so that he's eligible for probation after 20 years. He cannot be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which was the impetus for stepping off of the first-degree murder charge and making the offer we did that was accepted. I know counsel has stated that Mr. Wilson was not the instigator, but it's very clear that they were watching, they were waiting for the victim to go to sleep, checking on her, and that it was actually Mr. Wilson who attacked first, stabbing the victim in the neck with a knife, and when that didn't work, then we have the rest of this offense.
Wilson pled guilty to the murder, and Judge Wonker sentenced him to the maximum sentence allowed by law, life in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. For the assault with a deadly weapon charge with enhancement, Wilson has been sentenced to 8 to 20 years with 771 days of credit for time served. Michael Liebig, Don Liebig's son, wrote a letter to the court. He asked for a sentence outside of what the law allows due to the heinous nature of the crime, stating that after his mother was beaten, she barely had a head left. Details of the crime revealed a very graphic scene. Prior to this crime, there had been no criminal history or reports from school or any other authority stating previous issues with Michael Wilson. Dakota Saldivar was also to be sentenced today, but that was postponed for submission of needed paperwork by the court. His court date will be rescheduled.
Marco Torres appeared in district court on September 4th to be arraigned for the alleged April murder of his roommate over a spilled bag of marijuana.
Torres appeared in Judge Wonker's courtroom from the Pahrump jail via television. Judge Wonker explained that this televised appearance was for his safety as well as others due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Torres was arrested on April 4th after the Nye County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call from a man asking for help. The line was disconnected. The call was traced to a residence on Linda Street in Pahrump. Once officers arrived, Torres met them at the door and told them to leave. Officers gained entrance to the home where they found another man dead in the bedroom. The victim, Joseph Piper, was under the care of Torres. Evidence presented at the preliminary hearing stated that Torres moved to Pahrump to care for Piper, whom suffered from throat cancer. Piper allegedly locked himself in a bedroom while the two were arguing and attempted to call a neighbor and a relative. Torres broke into the room. Torres stands accused of then choking Piper to death. Torres allegedly admitted to the killing of the cancer-stricken man. Torres told detectives that he and Piper had been arguing over a bag of marijuana that Piper had spilled on the floor. Torres pled not guilty to 8 counts: first-degree murder of a vulnerable person, open murder, invasion of a home, battery by strangulation, abuse of a vulnerable person, interception of a message sent by telephone, possession of a dangerous weapon, and habitual criminal. Torres is next scheduled to appear in court for a calendar call on December 4th, with jury selection and the trial scheduled for January 13th through the 22nd.
When we come back, we'll have your Business First briefing and a couple of structure fires keeping Pahrump Valley Fire and Rescue busy. Stay with us.
You're watching News 25, the most recognized and farthest reaching local news in Nye County. News 25, local news you can count on. This segment of the news is brought to you by P&P Property Management. Knowledge, experience, communication, and trust. Call Cynthia at 775-727-4444.
Welcome back. Well, wildfires in California has caused $50 billion in economic loss since 2017. Shares of car company Tesla fell on Tuesday, and Apple is moving forward with plans for new products. More now in your Business First Brief.
Here's Angela Miles with today's Business First Brief.
Topping our news, out-of-control California wildfires are becoming the second most destructive in the state's history. Smoke plumes are visible as far away as Nebraska. According to one estimate, fires have caused at least $50 billion in economic loss since 2017. On to Tesla's tumble. Shares of the electric car company raced lower on Tuesday. That's after the S&P 500 Index Committee added Etsy, Teradyne, and Catalent to the index, but snubbed Tesla. Tesla was left out even though the company has reported turning a profit for 4 consecutive quarters. Tesla is also worth more than many of the world's largest automakers. Apple is moving forward with plans for new products. The tech giant says to save the date of September 15th for a virtual show and tell that could include the iPhone 12.
Several senators, including Nevada's Catherine Cortez Masto, visited the Core Civic Detention Center here in Pahrump following complaints that the inmates were not being protected from exposure to the coronavirus. At least 24 lawsuits have been filed against the privately owned prison on Mesquite Avenue. Cortez Masto said that the detention center appeared to be clean at this time, but is concerned with the overall treatment of immigrants by the federal immigration system. The prison holds Immigration and Customs Enforcement detainees as well as inmates in U.S. Marshals custody. 25 detainees as of July had tested positive for COVID-19 when the suits began. They allege shockingly inadequate cleaning protocols, crowded cells and dormitories, insufficient medical care, and increasing fear and desperation in the facility.
Well, home and garage are lost to fire on Pahrumph's west side today. A family has been displaced and 2 people transported by Pahrump Valley Fire and Rescue ambulance this afternoon, one with smoke inhalation and one a fall victim following an intense structure fire that occurred on Hand Avenue. Pahrump Valley Fire and Rescue, Nye County Sheriff's Office deputies, and Nye County Sheriff's Office auxiliary were on scene, along with Nye County Animal Control. The blaze destroyed at least one double-wide manufactured home, a detached garage, and surrounding property. Fire Chief Scott Lewis said the fire started at the awning and quickly spread to the garage and home. Pahrump Valley Fire and Rescue is investigating the cause of this fire, which appears to be accidental in nature. Fire Chief Scott Lewis says that there was a high-level response because of the windswept fire, which included flammable liquids and gas.
Fire ravages several vehicles and a structure on the corner of Wilson Road during the evening hours.
A mobile home being used as a fixed structure, an SUV, and a fifth wheel were destroyed in a fire last night at the corner of Wilson and Blagg. The blaze, which engulfed the structure and vehicles, were reported around midnight. The cause of the fire is under investigation by Pahrump Valley Fire and Rescue and Nevada State Fire Marshal and appears to be suspect in nature. 2 individuals were assessed on scene and declined to be transported.
Coming up next, we'll have your health report from the Cleveland Clinic. Also, help on the way for those with opioid addiction. Stay with us.
You're watching News 25, brought to you by Mountain West Lawyer, Injury Attorneys, 727-9500. News 25, local news you can count on.
Most schools going to look much different this year as some districts switch to remote learning. It also is going to pose some new challenges for kids. So how can parents help them adjust? Dr. Emily Mudd with Cleveland Clinic Children's says you can start by making a schedule.
Schedules are incredibly important. So children thrive on structure and routine. It helps them feel safe. It helps them understand what is coming next. And that's how children really thrive at school and will continue to at home. So I say have a flexible but consistent schedule.
Dr. Mudd says, for example, give your child a couple of tasks that need to be completed by lunch and let them pick what they want to do first. That way, they still have some flexibility in their day. She says it's also important they have a designated space to learn in, which they can decorate on their own so it feels more personal. Another tip, be patient. She says there are going to be times where you're both overwhelmed and stressed out, and that's totally normal.
If you're having tension with your child, over homework or over a school learning activity, is take a break. And so this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. If there's a specific assignment, take a break for yourself and for your child, because this is going to come up frequently. Recenter yourself and have your child take that space to themselves too.
Dr. Mudd says you can always turn to your child's teacher for help too. They've spent the summer preparing for these kinds of issues and will be able to lend a hand.
Every year, thousands of people in the U.S. die from drug overdose. Opioid abuse is one of the leading causes of death, but help is available for those who need it. Shelley Piero says Living Free Health provides a number of treatment options for patients dealing with addiction.
August 31st was National Opioid Overdose Awareness Day, and the idea, I think, behind that is nationwide, perhaps even international, was to bring awareness to the fact that a lot of people do overdose and die from opioids, and to try to help the families who've lost people. At Living Free Health, we are a Narcan distribution site. So what we're able to do for the community for free is to deliver the Narcan training and also give them a free box of Narcan. And September is, and we just got into September, exactly right. So September is Recovery Month. And that's been going on since 1989. And so that's 31 years, Recovery Month. And the focus again on that is for people to be able to, again, in reducing the stigma that it's a disease like any other disease, and that to celebrate the fact that people do recover from addiction and also from mental health. Also to raise awareness of the fact that that there's help available, and there's lots of help available. Living Free Health and many other agencies are what's termed co-occurring services, capable or enhanced. And what that basically means is that you have a substance use disorder and you may have a co-occurring mental health disorder. And so best practices really is to treat both of those in an integrated fashion, because a lot of times it's sort of a chicken and egg. You don't know which one came first, and when you're able to treat both at the same time, that there's a greater chance of success. One of the things that we teach is that there are a lot of people who are on pain medications, or especially the elderly, who have a different combination of medications, and sometimes a pain medication from a recent surgery, for instance. And so we must be aware that anyone is really at risk for an opioid overdose. Our telephone number is 775-505-1625. That's probably the fastest way to get in touch with us. Some of the things that we offer for the community, our education, are the Narcan training, like we said, and we don't always do those Narcan trainings in groups. If people call and say, hey, I really need help, I need to come in, can you help me out on an individual basis? We absolutely do that. We also have 12-step meetings here in the office, and so for a lot of people, that's very helpful. Not just for them individually, but for their families as well. September 5th, Saturday, is my 19th clean and sober anniversary. So very proud of that, very blessed, and could not have done it without the help of treatment, AA, and all the people in my life.
News 25 WeatherCam is brought to you by Lerner and Rowe Injury Attorney's Office in Pahrump. In a wreck, need a check? Call 702-877-1500.
Hey Nevada, good evening. It's John Kohler from just outside the KPVM Channel 25 Weather Studios. And look what I'm observing here in the weather. Blue sky shining on me. Ain't nothing but blue sky do I see. It's a gorgeous day. The smoke is gone. We're feeling good. We'll tell you all about the weather coming up.
News 25 weather is brought to you by Dairy Council of Nevada. The splash of cream in your coffee, the dollop of sour cream on your burrito, the melted toasty cheese on your pizza. Undeniably delicious, undeniably dairy. Enjoy what's real.
Hi, it's John Kohler from the KPVM Channel 25 Weather Studios, and this is your Nevada Dairy Council weather update. Beautiful day today in Fernley. Oh gosh, it only got up to 80 degrees. That's downright human. I like this. 44 for a low tonight. Fallon also at 80 and 40. Carson City 79 and 40. Well, you're keeping it all good in the hood there. Tonopah was checking in at 76 degrees for a high today. 41 for your low tonight. Out in Goldfield, 76 and 41 also. So you guys are weather twins. Out in Beatty, 85 today for a high. 51 for a low. In Amargosa, peaked out at 87 degrees. It's 56 going to be our low tonight. And in Las Vegas, 83 for a high. 63 for a low. Not too bad. And I want it that way out in Death Valley. That's right, it's 98 degrees. See what I did there? 69 for a low tonight. Let's take a look at the local weather, shall we? In beautiful Pahrump, 81 degrees currently, down from our high today of 83 degrees. Winds out of the north-northeast at 13 miles an hour, and that's pretty much blown all that smoke out. We appreciate that. Man, it was smoky-dokey yesterday. Creek Lake fire still blowing smoke out in the atmosphere. We're just happening to avoiding it with the track that the wind is taking here. Sunrise this morning at 6:22 a.m. this morning. A little bit of humidity. It'll pick up some tonight at 7% now. It'll probably be like 13, 14, 15% as we head on towards the evening. What's it going to look like this evening? 17%. Hey, ding, ding, ding. Winter chicken dinner. 81 degrees is your current temperature. As I say, 56 will be our low this evening, and those winds staying friendly and kind at 8 miles an hour out of the east-northeast. Sunset tonight, 6:59 p.m. That's a loss of a minute and a half over yesterday. Well, let's take a look at the weather as we head on into the weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Heating up just a little bit. Moving up from 87 now to 94 tomorrow. 98 degrees on Saturday, 100 degrees on Sunday. And that's where it'll kind of like rest and relax at 99, 98, 95 as we finish out the next 7 days. 60 degrees is our low this evening. Here in beautiful Pahrump, it'll go to 65, 67, sneak around 70, 68 degrees for a low. Pretty pleasant, and especially now the smoke is gone. Now, like Creek Lake fire, 146,000 acres gone up. They have zero containment so far. I mean, maybe that's a California problem. Do we worry about that? We worry about it because of the smoke, and the 60 single-family structures have gone bye-bye. Also 20 little structures and a couple commercial buildings out there. But, you know, I think good thoughts for them. Maybe send a little rain their way mentally. Maybe that'll work. I don't know. How else do we get containment? Well, that's your weather report from the KPVM Weather Studios. Back to the desk with Deanna and Missy.
Thanks, John. Good night.
Good night.